I started experiencing the discrimination when I migrated for my studies to a bigger town like Pune, bigger city like Pune, where I experienced discrimination on the basis of language that I was speaking, which is spoken in Pune. It's considered to be pure Marathi, and I was not talking that kind of pure Marathi, and that really gave me a kind of experience, first possibly experience of discrimination, which was completely on the basis of the kind of culture, which is on the basis of urban and rural cultures. But that made me aware of how one feels if one is discriminated against. And I started making observations about different discriminations, different forms of discriminations. In fact, when I observed that there are many such boys who are discriminated against on the basis of the cultural differences between urban and rural parts, I started mobilizing all those boys who were like discriminated against, and we, in a way, we formed our gang, and we started creating trouble for all those who would insist for purity of Marathi, purity of language. And the first response was a very violent response to that, mobilizing all those who were discriminated against and then literally bashing up those who discriminate against you, because then that collective power of these men who are like rural, were like huge, and who would use abusive language very easily than the urban crowd, urban middle class upper caste crowd. So that we put all our bad strengths together to fight against discrimination. That was the first response to that. It actually worked. Now I realize, when I look back, and I realize that, how wrong was that. In fact, it also helped me to reflect a lot. I started observing discrimination in different forms, and at the same time I also started observing what are the ways people respond back to the kind of experiences of discrimination. And I realized that it is not always this collectivization of bad past together. And I started observing the way women would come together, women would build strength amongst themselves and fight against injustices, not by the means of violence, but by the assertion of their demands and by speaking out about self and narrating about their own stories. And during that period, I started realizing that there could be alternative ways of doing things, possibly not really put together all those bad paths and create another and create experiences of powerlessness for other people. Though I was deploying all masculine strategies, I never felt happy, because it always used to create a lot of tensions. Because you are also dealing with your dilemmas, you are dealing with, you understand that you are becoming lesser human, you are becoming, bad person. So it always was a kind of concern for me, but didn't know other ways of doing things, right? But when I started really using my understanding of the kind of struggles that women put together, I found that it is more empowering in a way. Empowering in a sense, you are fighting injustices, you are fighting against discrimination, but at the same time, it is not giving you the bad feel, bad taste about what you are doing, because that is based on certain principles of participation, principles of justice, principles of non-violence. The kind of struggle that I actually did to respond to the discrimination that I experienced certainly was not based on values. And the difference here is, when I started learning, understanding and using principles of feminist movement and the values, those have been used by women's movements in India and across the world, it was more empowering. It was really more empowering, understanding those values and actually living those values and becoming more human, better human. So at the same time, while you are fighting against injustices, you also realize that you are becoming better human being in your personal relationships, in the way you analyze social inequalities, the way you analyze caste, the way you analyze nationalism. It was more enriching experience, becoming more human rather.